I'm Lynn Packer with my 29th report, How Operation Underground Railroad Attorneys Killed a Federal Grand Jury Investigation. Plus, OUR's cinematic showpiece, Sound of Freedom, finally premieres nationwide. Will audiences believe its bogus storyline? The four topics I'll cover in this episode: the suspicious termination of a federal grand jury criminal investigation into Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad. FBI agents ignored evidence that OUR operatives bribed Haitian judges and police officers in connection with the purported rescue of child sex slaves. The LDS Church Public Affairs Department's connection to a leak of a confidential letter that officially ended the Davis County Attorney's OUR investigation. And Ballard and OUR go full-on MAGA and QAnon, promoting the July 4th nationwide theatrical release of the falsehood-laden movie Sound of Freedom. Before going in depth, here's a quick overview of each of the four sections in this report. The first topic, the shutdown of the OUR grand jury investigation. It began and ended in secrecy in the federal courthouse in Salt Lake City. Its existence was never reported by mainstream news outlets. I was the only one who reported a grand jury had been engaged. Thus, no ongoing mainstream coverage of OUR's suspected illegal activity, and nothing about when, how, and why the grand jury case was killed, not only without any indictments, but also without even finishing. Reporters never addressed the question, was there a nefarious backroom deal that called off the FBI? Next, in brief, the FBI's inept investigation. Two examples. FBI agents ignored evidence that OUR operatives bribed Haitian judges and police officers in connection with the purported rescue of child sex slaves. And even though two FBI forensic accountants were assigned to the case, there was no forensic audit of OUR's finances, a must when investigating alleged financial wrongdoing in a $100 million enterprise. Third, the story about a top Mormon Church public affairs representative's odd role in the publication of a leaked confidential letter about the Davis County attorney ending his OUR investigation. The fourth topic, the Marketing Blitz targeting MAGA and QAnon believers leading up to the Sound of Freedom premiere. Tim Ballard, Eduardo Verastegui, who produced the film, and Jim Caviezel, who plays Ballard, pled for ticket sales, appearing on right-wing political and religious talk shows, all the while making multiple false and misleading claims about the movie and child sex trafficking. I'll begin with the section about OUR's pitches to MAGA and QAnon world, because this video is published the same week the movie Sound of Freedom premiered across the United States. This note, last year I already published 2 reports about the struggle to get the Sound of Freedom distributed to theaters. Those can be viewed on YouTube. Now, with the movie finally hitting theaters, its producers have been emphasizing its main plot or storyline. Ballard uncovers his life mission when he's able to free a 7-year-old boy who was kidnapped by ruthless child traffickers. The young boy asks Ballard to find his sister, who was also kidnapped. After rescuing the young boy, Ballard learns the boy's sister is still captive and decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. I'll play 2 clips about the main plot, the first from the film's trailer.
American child or an American trafficker. What reason D.C. would let you within 1 million miles of it?
Glamour shots of Miss Cartagena don't count.
She has the girl.
And I say the girl's in Russia. Prove me wrong.
It's over, Tim. Close up. Get on the plane and come back home.
I know it's a true story, and start out with the heart of what pulled you into it.
Tim Ballard, Homeland Security agent, goes down, takes down one of the worst child traffickers in history. Meets this little boy. I won't tell you the story, what happens there, but the little boy asks him a question. Little boy, 5, 6 years old. Imagine, boy says, "Will you save my sister?" So he goes back, talks to his wife, and he essentially sells everything, and he goes and tries to find this little girl.
The main plot is pure fiction. While it is true Tim Ballard in 2006, while working as a Homeland Security agent on the U.S.-Mexican border, helped arrest a pedophile named Earl Buchanan and isolate his 5-year-old victim. That's the end of the truth. From there, it's a series of lies, each falsehood getting bigger as the story goes on. Ballard was not the one who rescued the boy. It was a border agent. The boy was not kidnapped, but groomed by a serial pedophile. The boy's sister was not kidnapped by anyone. No girl was sold to a Colombian drug lord. No daring rescue ever took place. The question, how true is the story, came up on the movie marketing trail. Ballard, Vrastigi, and Caviezel were asked if the story is true. Not by any experienced news reporters, but by adoring interviewers who asked softball questions and did no fact-checking.
Tim, the movie really starts off with you in progress. It's how much creative license was taken with this script? And the reason I'm asking you, because the story is almost so bizarre, you go, they must have made a lot of this up.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what, every bad guy is real. In fact, the movie was cut because it was too long. And remember we talked about they had cards at the end telling you every bad guy is real, every kid is real, and it told you where they are today. So they had to cut it. It hurt, but it was his fault. Way
to go, Eduardo.
I told him, you know what, let's focus on the movie, and after that we do a TV series, and then we put everything, right?
There you go. Hey, that's
it's coming,
idea.
It's coming.
Caviezel, is this a true story, or was any of this embellished for dramatic purposes in this?
All right, so we did the Count of Monte Cristo. By way of analogy, you have 1,200 pages, 88 characters. Now, people love this movie. We had to get it down to 100 minutes. So I don't have time to show you 10,000 minutes of the heroic stuff that Tim Ballard has done. That would be a show that would last for about 15 years. So we had to get it down to...
An honest answer would have been, the main plot in its entirety is fabricated. What about the excuses? The movie got cut because it was too long. We had to get it down. The movie promotion says, torn between his work and his conscience, Ballard decides to go to whatever lengths are necessary to save the boy's sister. He ends up quitting his job and heading straight into the forbidding Colombian jungle, risking his life to liberate her. So just how much was cut from the main plot sequence of events, from the time a boy asked Ballard to save his sister to the time Ballard quits his job to go look for her? Ballard's speeches in his movie infers it was a matter of days between the boy's plea for help and Ballard quitting his job. What actually gets cut is the truth. It was in 2006 that the boy's abuser was arrested and the boy freed. When Ballard actually quit his Homeland Security job, it was in late 2013, 7 years later. Had the boy's 11-year-old sister been kidnapped, she was not. She would have been 18 when Ballard went looking for her. Who knew the storyline is false? Two of Ballard's attorneys who are being paid millions of dollars to ward off the criminal investigations. Alessandra Serrano and Karen Hewitt. They knew. How do we know they knew? Before they were engaged to defend Ballard, they were prosecutors for the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Diego and were the ones who prosecuted Earl Buchanan, the man who was convicted of sexually abusing the boy. Ballard's attorneys knew that Ballard did not rescue the boy. The boy was not kidnapped by a ruthless trafficker, but groomed by a family friend. That the boy's sister was living with their grandmother in California and never kidnapped from Colombia, Mexico, or Honduras, depending on which version of the story Ballard tells. Ballard did not resign from Homeland Security investigations until 7 years after the Buchanan arrest. Yet, they vouch for his integrity. Even though the movie's cast list does not show the full names of some of the actual characters, it does list the full name of the claimed kidnapper, Earl Buchanan. In an interview arranged by Las Vegas reporter Damian Moore, Earl Buchanan's son reacted to his father being named as a villain in Sound of Freedom. The son said his father was a millionaire who curried favor with legal and illegal immigrant families. He said his father is a scumbag who also molested his sons. But Buchanan's son said his father did not kidnap the boy but groomed him, perhaps with the boy's grandmother's knowledge. He said his father did not sell any of his victims. He did not traffic them, he abused them. And he added, the 5-year-old boy was traumatized when taken from his abuser. OUR's primary messaging is a public disservice. Tim Ballard took the truth that Earl Buchanan was a pedophile who groomed victims, which is sadly very common, and falsely transformed him into a pedophile who kidnaps and sells victims, which is rare. The Sound of Freedom's fabricated story was needed to portray Ballard as a Rambo-like hero.
And then let's say it's the 4th of July, you're at a picnic, you have your children, and suddenly one of your children is missing. And this is where it becomes extremely sad, because that child's never going to be found. Over 300,000 children a year under the ages of 18 are taken. 850,000 children last year were taken, disappeared across the border. 850,000, that's 8 Rose Bowl stadiums and a half that were taken. But what the power of this film is, it weaponizes you. If you had your child and it was taken, might you wished that you had been weaponized to see it coming?
This is a true story about rescue operations that we conducted.
These kids who are 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 years old are kidnapped millions a year in the world. And these kids are being raped 10 to 15 times a day for many years. And people, they don't want to talk about it because it's too ugly. Hold on a second, more ugly.
Next, the first topic I listed for this report, the axing of the grand jury investigation, how and when it happened. The FBI grand jury investigation into Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard was killed during a February 2022 meeting at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Salt Lake. None of the participants would comment. This slide represents my best guess as to who was there and what happened. The Department of Justice had at least 3 people at the meeting: Assistant U.S. Attorney Dave Backman and FBI agents Drew Scown and Mitchell Bruce. 2 more additional agents might have been there. OUR and Tim Ballard may have had 5 or more representatives at the meeting: James Melendres from Arizona, Alessandra Serrano and Karen Hewitt from California. They're the 2 who know the Sound of Freedom's main plot is false. Salt Lake Attorney James Gilson and possibly Brent Andrewson. I don't know the name of the representative of the Washington, D.C.-based Ancora Consulting Group. A purported forensic audit was offered as evidence OUR did nothing wrong financially. If the 2 FBI forensic accountants contested the validity of OUR's audit, they were not persuasive. During the meeting, the plug was pulled on the grand jury investigation. During the meeting, OUR's attorneys ostensibly provided evidence so compelling, apparently in the form of an independent financial audit, that the DOJ ended the investigation during the meeting, which would have been unusual to say the least, because there was no chance for FBI agents to participate in the decision, no chance for the U.S. Attorney's Office and FBI to vet, that is to fact check, what OUR counsel presented during the meeting, no chance for the Davis County attorney, assuming he was not at the meeting, who began the probe and likely asked for FBI and grand jury support to consult on the decision. It's unlikely OUR's new evidence was given to grand jurors whose job it was to evaluate evidence before deciding to indict or not. The role Ancora Consulting played is not yet clear, but it was likely involved in producing the audit that was purported to show OUR did nothing wrong financially. Ancora has declined multiple requests for comment. OUR's 2022 IRS Form 990 shows Ancora was paid some $733,000, but does not say what for. It may be noteworthy that Ancora is being sued by one attorney for allegedly falsifying audits. OUR invites anyone to request more information. I did ask. OUR did not respond. Was the evidence OUR attorneys presented in the meeting really powerful? Or was it just for show that the decision had already been made, perhaps in a backroom deal? Tim Ballard has powerful friends in Washington, not the least of whom is OUR supporter, Utah Senator Mike Lee. He sits on the influential Senate Judiciary Committee, which oversees the FBI and U.S. attorneys. Another possible purveyor of a backroom deal is the Washington, D.C.-based law firm Jones Day, and Jones Day partner Karen Hewitt, who was at the grand jury death knell meeting. American Lawyer magazine, in an article about Hewitt, says Jones Day's strength goes beyond its willingness to play hardball. Jones Day had the dubious distinction of being the nation's MAGA law firm. It represented the Donald Trump for President campaign, earning $20 million in fees. Jones Day partner Don McGahn became White House counsel, where he helped populate the White House legal office and Department of Justice with Jones Day attorneys. New York Times business investigations editor David Enrich wrote about that in his book, Servants of the Damned, Giant Law Firms, Donald Trump, and the Corruption of Justice.
And when McGahn becomes the first White House counsel with Trump, he then imports from Jones Day many, many lawyers to surround himself, not just in the White House counsel's office and elsewhere in the White House, but throughout the federal government, in particular the Justice Department. But it's brought to bear on behalf of Jones Day's corporate clients who have business before the federal government in a way that would be kind of funny if it weren't so, I think, troubling in a lot of ways. And there is an example that I detail in the book involving Walmart, which was under criminal and civil investigation from the Trump administration Justice Department. And it's a Justice Department that was staffed at the senior levels in large part by Jones Day lawyers. Jones Day is representing Walmart and goes to its former contacts inside the Trump administration and does its darndest to derail that investigation in a way that left federal prosecutors, including some who had been appointed by Trump, just absolutely aghast at what they were seeing.
Karen Hewitt was the point person in the Walmart case Enrich was talking about. The headline, Walmart was almost charged criminally over opioids. Trump appointees killed the indictment. After stopping the criminal case, Jones Day sued the Justice Department in an attempt to kill a civil case, as reported in the press. Walmart kept filling suspicious prescriptions, stoking the country's opioid epidemic. Former U.S. Attorney Karen Hewitt became the lead counsel in Jones Day's suit against the Department of Justice for holding Walmart accountable for opioid sales. Hewitt, who met with Trump's Attorney General William Barr while the litigation was ongoing, leveraged her connections with the DOJ to better represent a corporation that contributed to the U.S. opioid epidemic. Next, the FBI's incompetent, unfinished OUR investigation. I'll talk about 2 examples among many. Incredibly, no forensic audit was done. Investigating possible fraud in an international $100 million organization requires an intensive, meticulous forensic audit. Period. None was done for the OUR case, even though an FBI forensic accountant was assigned to the case. That was a colossal failure. It gets worse. The forensic accountant assigned to the case had no forensic accounting experience when hired. 0. The FBI says its forensic accountants crack major fraud cases. It says the forensic accountant role is one of the most vital and sought-after careers in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Forensic accountants use their accounting skills, auditing, and investigative techniques to research and follow the systems through which money may be funneled or laundered by criminals involved in financial wrongdoing. A forensic accountant assigned to a case plans, coordinates, and directs financial aspects of investigations in conjunction with special agents and prosecuting attorneys. What does it take to be hired as an FBI forensic accountant? The FBI attracts top-tier accounting professionals capable of conducting complex forensic financial investigations and retaining ownership of the financial portion of investigations. The FBI Forensic Accountant Program seeks individuals with several years of full-time post-collegiate experience. Compare that with Bruce's qualifications when hired. He did have a master's in accounting from Utah State University. During college, he was a door-to-door pest control salesman. If anything, that experience should have been a disqualifier. Utah's disreputable door knock industry should be investigated by the FBI. Bruce worked at his father's bicycle shop the year between graduation and being hired by the FBI. He was not even a licensed CPA when hired. He had not conducted even a conventional audit when hired. The FBI would not explain how he came to be hired with no experience and why he did not conduct a forensic audit on Operation Underground Railroad. My second point in this section, alleged OUR bribery was not investigated. I interviewed a former OUR operative in Haiti who told me OUR engaged in bribing police and judges. He was never interviewed by the FBI. I interviewed the former OUR operative, codenamed Batman, and asked if OUR bribed. The Batman character appears in all Sound of Freedom trailers. In this cut, he tells Ballard about a hooker he engaged who was much younger than she appeared.
Out of nowhere, she starts talking. Turns out she's not 25, not even 20. This girl is 14 years old to Mateo. She's been doing it since she was 6. Looks at me, smiles, takes the money, walks out the door.
Batman called possible bribes payments. He denied bribing, but he said, funding, yes. We in OUR always support with funding the agents in country put on our teams. They only make $200 to $400 a month. Batman would have been a major witness for the FBI on a number of issues. He was not interviewed. I've yet to report about a news source who has come forward, a Haitian official who accuses OUR of bribery. I will not use his name or show his face. He said, OUR used crooked judges and police officers, including impersonating officials, to foment accusations under false pretenses. He provided a government record, which he claims proves OUR lied about one of its major operations. He was not interviewed by the FBI. Bribery may be connected to the death of OUR operative Jim Petiote, who died under mysterious circumstances in 2019. Tim Ballard announced his death on Facebook. I'm so sad to announce that our lead operator in Haiti, Jim Petiote, passed away unexpectedly yesterday. He was a true hero to the children of Haiti. We love you, Jim. Besides Tim Ballard, Petiote hobnobbed with other OUR supporters like Sean Reyes and Glenn Beck. His unexpected death was made more mysterious because of no autopsy and a suspicion he had stolen OUR bribe money meant for the Haitian Attorney General. Was he murdered over stolen bribe money? The FBI did not investigate. The final section, Mormon Church PR weighs in on Tim Ballard's behalf. Even though the U.S. Attorney in Utah pulled the plug in early 2022, the Davis County investigation remained open for another year. But then, out of the blue, the Deseret News reported that the Davis County investigation, without any public announcement, had ended. It turns out the upper echelons of the Mormon Church had something to do with that breaking news story. The story was written by reporter Brigham Tomco. It was an exclusive scoop. No other outlet had the story. The article cited a document, a declination statement that had been prepared by Davis County Attorney Troy Rawlings. The article reported Ballard's outrage. Tim Ballard, the founder and CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, says the investigation harmed the organization's reputation. Continuing, the Davis County investigation into our organization lasted nearly 3 years and, unfortunately, was made public when it never should have been, Ballard said in a statement to the Deseret News. Operation Underground Railroad's reputation, he said, was dragged through the mud. Tomco reported, the determination to close the investigation came after Rawlings' office received and reviewed financial audits of OUR. It said Ballard claims the nonprofit is operated with integrity. We feel the conclusion of this investigation, as well as an extensive independent third-party audit, helped to reinforce that point, Ballard said. Those are references to the purported audit OUR attorneys also gave to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I got a copy of the declination letter through a grammar request. It does cite reasons for dropping the case. These factors include favorable audits of OUR following recognized general accounting principles by a reputable third party. All previous Deseret News Tim Ballard coverage was positive. Puff pieces without fact-checking. Here's a sampling of headlines. Gripping Operation Toussaint shows Tim Ballard's real-life battle against sex trafficking. LDS man discusses fight against child trafficking. Tim Ballard, I fought sex trafficking at the border. This is why we need a wall. Operation Underground Railroad's Tim Ballard meets with Ivanka Trump, politicians, regarding human trafficking. Tim Ballard talks OUR partnership with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Glenn Beck and Tim Ballard team up in Operation Underground Railroad video in Thailand. What about the Deseret News story strikes me as fishy? The paper had never reported there was a criminal investigation. Why report it ended? How did it get a confidential declination letter? Was Ballard interviewed or did he submit a canned statement? Why was a rookie reporter assigned? The Deseret News has experienced reporters. In search of answers, I spoke with the reporter, Brigham Tomco, who agreed it was somewhat fishy. He said the handling of the story was not typical and was weird. His assignment did not come through news editors. He was assigned by editor Hal Boyd, who had come to the news from LDS Church Public Affairs. Tomco was told it was a sensitive story to work quickly, and it would be the beginning and end of the paper's coverage on that matter. Boyd, not Tomco, was the one who got the declination letter and quotes from Ballard. Tomco did not interview Ballard. Tomco did not know who Boyd's sources were. Was the story connected in any way to the Sound of Freedom? Just prior to Brigham Tomco and the Deseret News breaking the story about the end of Davis County's investigation, OUR posted a video on YouTube announcing the July 4th theatrical release date for the film. It was likely no coincidence. I'm guessing Tim Ballard told the movie's distributor, Angel Studios, that the Davis County investigation had ended. He had the declination letter as proof, but it had not been made public. Angel Studios probably wanted a public announcement before disclosing a July 4th release date. Getting a friendly news outlet to run the story would give OUR control over content and timing, with no fact-checking. Hal Boyd, the Deseret News editor who guided Tomco's story, had and likely maintains close contact with top Mormon leaders. The request for the Deseret News to run the end of investigation story may have come through or from three LDS apostles who invested a supposed $600,000 in Ballard's movie ventures. Neither Boyd nor the three church leaders responded to my request for interviews. After Deseret News reporter Tomco ran the declination story, another Deseret News reporter, Kyle Dunphy, filed a grammar request with Davis County. He asked for, and I'll summarize, all records related to the Davis County Attorney's Office investigation into Operation Underground Railroad. The request sought to determine who had complained about OUR. He wrote, this request should also include any or all complaints filed with the Davis County Attorney's Office prior to this investigation that may have prompted the investigation. Dunphy did not respond to my request for an interview, so I don't know if Hal Boyd was behind his request. Davis County denied the reporter's request. The denial included this statement: Counsel for Mr. Ballard and OUR had requested we notify them of any request related to their clients, and as such we did when we received your request. In this case, we were provided with a letter from their counsel regarding your records request, and we've determined, with their permission, to forward that letter on to you along with our response. I obtained a copy of the OUR attorney letter via my own grammar request, which was approved. The OUR letter asked Davis County to deny the request, which it did. It said, granting the Deseret grammar request would vitiate sacrosanct grand jury secrecy protections. But the interesting thing about the letter is the fact that it documented for the first time on the record that there had been a grand jury investigation, which the letter repeated 11 times. It was proof provided by OUR itself, the target, not by the Davis County Attorney's Office or U.S. Attorney's Office. In conclusion, a little housekeeping. A few developments since my previous report. There are more signals that Eduardo Verástegui plans to run for president of Mexico. He's tightened his alliance with the U.S.'s CPAC, Conservative Political Action Caucus, by hosting an event in Mexico, and he's been using the Sound of Freedom promotional circuit as part of his image-enhancing campaign, which included a recent photo op with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy while in D.C. promoting his movie. OUR released its IRS-mandated 2022 990 financial report. Tim Ballard's annual salary took a big jump, from $354,500 in 2021 to $566,550 in 2022. His previous commitment to take no salary from OUR faded into the distant past. In 2019, he had pledged, "When I founded Operation Underground Railroad, it was always my goal to become a volunteer and not take donor dollars for myself." Elon Musk of Tesla and Twitter fame endorsed Sound of Freedom. He tweeted, "I recommend putting it on this platform for free for a brief period. or just asking people to subscribe to support. We would not keep any funds. Verastigi responded, "Thank you, Elon. This is a great idea. God's children are not for sale. Can't wait for you to see the film." Ballard, Verastigi, and especially Caviezel have been using their media tour to spread other conspiracy theories, not just OURs. Two examples, adrenochrome and kitty litter. Sound of Freedom won the endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who said, "I hope you'll watch their new movie, Sound of Freedom, which tells the true story of rescuing children from the evil hands of sex traffickers." She's also one of the highest profile spreaders of the anti-trans fake news about kids using cat litter boxes, which Ballard picked up. It's sometimes referred to as the litter boxes in schools hoax. It alleges that certain schools provide litter boxes in bathrooms for students who identify as cats or who participate in the so-called furry subculture. It's said to be in response to some school districts enacting protections for transgender students. Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia and Lauren Boebert of Colorado spread the hoax. Now Tim Ballard joins them, claiming some Utah schools put kitty litter in bathrooms. This next video clip has a New Hampshire Senate candidate's explanation of the kitty litter claim, and then Ballard's version.
Parents that were talking to you whose school, they have to go there because kids identify as cats or something, and they're bringing litter boxes to go to the bathroom into the school, and the teachers are encouraging it.
You know, you're absolutely right. Identifying as a cat, hissing at other students, meowing during tests, licking themselves like cats do to clean themselves. Very, very disruptive behavior, very unnecessary behavior, and behavior that doesn't belong in the classroom.
You've bought into it. You don't want to be a parent. You want to get an award for letting your kid be a cat. I mean, you heard of the furries, right? There's kitty litter in certain schools, I understand, here in Utah, because the kid wants to be a cat and the parents are getting awards and they're getting praised. And there's nothing you can do because the laws are going to have the backs of the pedophiles who've manipulated those children, and that's the end of our civilization.
Jim Caviezel has been using his point man status, promoting the Sound of Freedom, to repeating his adrenochrome warnings. He says, "Millions of kidnapped children are pressed into child sex prostitution. When they're too old to appeal to pedophiles, they're murdered and their body parts processed to make adrenochrome. Processing plants are in Ukraine, but Russian President Vladimir Putin is working to stymie production. Caviezel says it's one reason Putin invaded Ukraine. Caviezel says the CIA, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and DOJ are part of the child organ harvesting conspiracy."
The whole adrenochrome empire, this is a big deal. It's an elite drug that they've used for many years. It's 10 times more potent than heroin, and it has some mystical qualities as far as making you look younger. A barrel of oil, $77. For a barrel of body parts and what's going to be adrenochrome, all the plumes that are in the woman's mother's wombs, that goes into a plastic barrel. That's $77,000. Now that gets sent into these biolabs.
Who's organizing that?
I would have to say definitely that has to be in the three-letter agencies.
On June 21st, I left a message with OUR attorney Karen Hewitt regarding the Sound of Freedom movie, which said in part, "I'm sure you know that the main plot has Tim Ballard rescuing a girl sold into sex slavery in Colombia by the man you prosecuted, Earl Buchanan. So you also know that that rescue never happened." She did not respond, but then on June 27th, 6 days later, a week before the movie hit theaters, OUR President Matt Osborne dropped the F-bomb. No, not that F-bomb, another one. Osborne, who was not on the movie promotion tour with Ballard, Verastigi, and Caviezel, suddenly did an interview with Fox News Digital. He emphasized a part of the movie the other three barely mentioned in their messaging. Then he dropped the F-bomb. He said, "The film opens with a fictional story based on real-life events." The same day, June 27th, Osborne dropped the F-bomb. Neil Harmon, CEO of the Sound of Freedom distributor, Angel Studios, hosted a live ticket sales event with Tim Ballard. But Harmon and Matt Osborne were reading off different scripts. Harmon was still peddling the true story myth.
It's on the edge of your seat thriller. It's a true story.
It's almost certain The Sound of Freedom will propel Tim Ballard to greater stardom in the anti-child sex trafficking world and help Operation Underground Railroad take in more millions of dollars in donations. But the film might attract more news media fact-checking than OUR has ever undergone, and the actual true story of Tim Ballard and OUR might emerge. That's the end. Thanks for watching. You can email comments and corrections to lpacker636@gmail.com.